faith, family, and everything else that matters to you from a godly point of view. Welcome to the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast.
Hey, welcome in. It's the second edition of the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast. My name is Mark Harvard. I'm the pastor of communications and online campus for Clear Branch Methodist Church in Trussville, Alabama. And thanks for joining us this week. Now, last week we had our new lead pastor, Jeremy Alville, in with us, and we talked a lot about the new sermon series that we're in the middle of right now at Clear Branch called Faithful. It's about leading a faithful life, specifically through tithing and through sacrifice. And this week, we're actually going to be teetering more on the edge of family ministries and being a parent. And, being a parent of a 6-year-old myself, almost 7-year-old myself, I can use all the help I can get. And that's why I'm so fortunate to have right down the hall from me every single day my own little wall to bounce things off of, Melanie Schuler. And Melanie is our Minister of Children and Families here at Clear Branch. Melanie and I actually my first day here at Clear Branch, back 5.5 years ago, I walked into my office and there was a big sign on my office, and it's actually right there over there. I keep it behind the filing cabinet there, welcoming me to Clear Branch. It was one of the first things that actually let me know, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And so this week I get to hang out with my good friend Melanie on the podcast. Melanie, thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here.
So Melanie, you came in and you talked to me about this cool thing that you did this past Sunday with the kids in the backyard, which is, for those that aren't familiar, the backyard is our children's ministry area. It's so funny. The first time I was ever exposed to that name was at a Deck the Halls event where we didn't know where Jack was, and Melanie told Jenny that Jack was in the backyard, which is an indoor multi-purpose room. And Jenny freaked out because she was like, Jack's not wearing a jacket, and it's cold outside. and I ran over only to find out the backyard was just a name for the multi-purpose area there.
Yes, it is confusing. And so now when we have new people, I always tell them, when we bring you to the backyard, it is inside. So because sometimes we forget to tell people those names, and especially those that have been here a while, you'll say that to a new person and they totally think they're supposed to go to the field back behind the white building to pick up their kids, and no, they're inside.
No, we only put kids back there if they've been really bad.
Really bad.
Yes. Really bad. So, Mel, you're here to talk to us about a very serious topic. Now, being a parent, you always want to be the one that gives the happy news, the fun news, but sometimes, just life happens. You've got to give a kid bad news, and sometimes it's really bad news. And Mel, tell us what we're talking about today.
Well, there have been several kids in our ministry recently who have suffered different kinds of loss. Just recently, there was a family who, one of the little girls, it's actually a little girl and a little boy, brother and sister, who lost their grandfather. Now, I also have recently lost someone, not as close as a week or so ago, but for however many months that it has been, doesn't feel like very long, even when you're an adult. Sure. And so we all grieve in different ways and have questions about things. And this sweet little girl came and talked to me, asked me a few questions, and it just made me think about a book that we had used several years ago, the first year that you and I got to go together to Camp Simatonga as day camp leaders. And one of the things that we do with our day camp curriculum that's different from the older kids is that we always have our scripture reading and we have our lessons, but we also use a storybook. And most of the time, those storybooks are completely secular. They don't necessarily have any type of Christian ties. But the lesson or what we're trying to teach the kids is still there, and it's the same. And so when I was talking to her, it made me think about this book that we had read together at day camp that year before. And then I had also, when we went through during the pandemic and we weren't even coming into the office and we were recording story times for our kids to watch on Facebook Live at home, this was one of the books that I read. And this particular book, there's a brother and sister who wake up in the middle of the night and are scared. And they run to go find their mom, who tells them that they don't need to be scared. I'm just right here. I'm down the hall. And they question that because they're like, but we can't see you. We can't hear you. You know, you're not right there next to us. And she said, all you need to do is reach up and touch the invisible string that connects your heart to my heart.
Whoa.
Whether, I know, right? I tear up just thinking about it.
Out of the gate with that.
And so they go through all these different scenarios. You know, what if I'm in a submarine, or what if I'm here, or what if I'm there? And then they ask their mom, but what if you're mad at us? And in the book, it shows that they had gotten into a bunch of paint and made a huge mess. And it shows their mom standing there with her hand on her hip.
Yeah.
And she says, it doesn't matter, even then. Just because I may be upset with you doesn't mean I don't love you. And the string is never going to go away. Mm-hmm. And then one of the kids says, well, what about Uncle Brian in heaven? And she's like, even then, that invisible string can go wherever it needs to go. And so after a little while, the storm ends and the kids go back to bed. But they lay in the bed talking about all the people that they know and all of the people that those friends are connected, that their hearts are connected to other friends and family by invisible strings, and how if you really stop and think about it, that no one is ever alone because we're all connected to all these people, and sometimes multiple people, and the strings cross each other and go all the different places. Mm-hmm. But I think that's something that kids can visualize, because the Bible can be a lot. It's a lot for adults to digest.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes. And so it's really over little kids' heads a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And Bible stories are great, especially if you can connect one thing from that story to a kid's real life. Mm-hmm. But what's so wonderful about a book like this is that it helps them to visualize something that's very hard to A, to talk about, and B, to explain.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got the big hitters, the standard go-to Bible stories that all kids know. I mean, because they think it's cool to be, with a whale, and they think it's, it's what, I mean, and they know, a lot of the Jesus-based stuff, the Gospels, and but you get into, Philemon or something like that. And, yeah, my 6-year-old doesn't know that,
And he's not going to hear it in the backyard more than likely. So.
But yeah, it's that relatability thing, and a lot of us, we latch on to certain verses. A lot of us latch on to certain things. But when it comes to something as heavy as when we're talking about death, mm-hmm. It opens up this whole new area of stuff to explore with children. That's, in my opinion, extremely important. I mean, I know with Jack, we've talked to him a lot about, this person went to go be with Jesus. When your grandfather, where's Poppy? Well, Poppy went to go be with Jesus, that sort of stuff. So it's a very base level something, because you can lose kids, right? And just the sheer volume of the concepts.
Yeah. And two, sometimes we give kids an answer that we think they're going to understand, and they may, right, or it makes sense to them right then. But then they may think about it later on and have questions, or as they grow mm-hmm. older. And so, that's another thing that's good about a book like this, because if it's a book that you're reading like at bedtime, like if you've got a rotation, this is a great one, because maybe your child has already been touched by grief. Maybe they've not lost forever, but lost living with a parent through divorce. Maybe they've lost an older sibling to college or to moving off to the workforce. There are lots of different ways that kids can miss someone and grieve them. Death being, of course, the hardest, I think. I think we would all agree with that.
Sure. Yeah.
But to be able to have this something that you talk about and you read every so often, so that it becomes something that they do think about, and that when you read it again later on, they may have a different question than they had 6 months ago, because mm-hmm. Kids are changing constantly, and the things that they talk about and think about change so much. So having that tool kind of to have a good way to talk to them about, and then it also opens up the opportunity to have conversations about it. It's hard to talk about losing someone to death with a child. Like I said, I recently experienced that, and so anytime I talk about it, and of course I'm doing it right now, I'll start tearing up because I get emotional. And as I was talking to that little girl that day, she said, "Oh, Miss Melanie, we don't have to talk about it right now. I don't want you to be sad." But I know.
Kids, man.
But that's okay. And I said, "But no, we can talk about it. I don't mind being sad. It's just part of it." And I said, "Are you sad when you think about missing your granddaddy?" And she said, "Yes, ma'am." And her eyes welled up. And I said, "But that's okay because he's left a legacy for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you should talk about him. You should talk about him with your little brother because he's so much younger and help him remember the things that he did." And I said, "I hope that one day you're my age and you're sitting at the kitchen table with your kids and that you tell them stories about your granddad." And she was like, "Really? That's okay to do?" I was like, "Of course it is. That's how we show honor." And while it still makes us miss them, it helps us remember them and helps their memory to feel a little more real. And so it's keeping a part of them with you. So anytime you have something like this, I think that's helped start conversations with your kids or with your grown-up best friend for that matter. I mean, it's amazing the things that spark these. It's good to talk about them. It's good to acknowledge that it's okay to be sad.
Mm-hmm.
And the ways that we can help work through that together.
Mel, I want to go into a little more detail and a little deeper on this in just a few minutes, but stick around. It's the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast. I'm Mark Harvard. I'm here with Melanie Schuler, our Minister of Children and Families here at Clear Branch. Stick around.
It's that time again. Time for our annual trunk or treat at Clear Branch. Bring the whole family and spend the evening of October 25th with us as we share fun, music, snacks, and of course, candy. This event is open to the entire community, so grab your costume and your friends and be at Clear Branch Methodist from 5:30 to 8 p.m. on October 25th for this year's trunk or treat.
Welcome back to the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast.
It's the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast. My name is Mark Harvard. I'm the pastor of communications and online campus here at Clear Branch Methodist Church in Trussville, Alabama. And this week we're talking with our Minister of Children and Families, Melanie Schuler, and we're talking about children and dealing with loss. And we've talked a lot about death and about, how honoring someone's legacy, kids have to be kind of told that it's okay to remember, like that person, that person's not around, whether it's for death or for college or whatever. It's okay to continue talking about that person. And that was a concept I never even thought about that, because the kids don't want to upset other people. If they see you getting upset talking about this person, they tend to back away. Is that something that you see a lot?
I think I didn't realize how many people do that when I was growing up, because I grew up with, I was the oldest grandkid of 3 sets of grandparents, and I still knew some of my great-grandparents up until like my 3rd and 4th, even 5th grade year. Mm-hmm. So I knew a lot. I had at least met some of these people, but I grew up hearing from them and then from my grandparents, all 6 of them, stories about these people who had come before me, some people whom I had met and some people who I didn't. So I think maybe I was just really blessed to grow up in a family that really talked about the stories of people.
Sure.
And of course, I'm kind of a storyteller. I always like to tell stories about people. And I know you guys, I tell all my poor coworkers stories about people they've never met all the time. And I'm sure they get tired of it. And sometimes they throw things at me, but we get through it.
But Mel, let's dispel with any misconceptions that we would not throw things at you otherwise.
Right, because they totally would. Just know that. So as I had heard stories as when I was a kid about, people, my family before me, I have told my kids many stories. And I think there's a lot of times that they roll their eyes. But now my kids are 17 and 18, about to be 18 and 19. And they're getting now, I think, to the age where they can start to appreciate and enjoy the stories of things that have come before. Like my daughter has now heard my dad talk about students that he taught years ago and the things that they've gone on to do in their lives and how special that is to him to be able to see a former student. Whereas when she was younger, that would have just been boring to hear. Now she finds it fascinating and loves to listen. But you can forget stories. And so that's why I had said to my little friend, talk about your granddad. And maybe your mom or your dad are too sad right now to talk about it. But talk about him with your little brother. Tell your friend something about him. Because the more that you talk about those things and that you remember them, the more you're going to remember them.
Yeah.
And so it's great. You know, I'll still tell stories of things that my granddad did to me. Like he put soaked my thumb in Tabasco sauce.
So you wouldn't suck your thumb?
Yeah.
Wow.
But he didn't tell me that it was Tabasco sauce or that it was going to burn. And of course, I should have known when he waited until my grandmother got in the shower to do that it was probably not going to end well. And that was his cushion, was her being out of commission, you know, for a few minutes. But I mean, had I not told that story so many times, I was in second grade when that happened. I might not still remember it now, but it's a funny story, but it's also a very good indicator of the fact that my granddad was a jokester. He loved to play practical jokes on people. And so that's a fun thing to remember, that even though my kids never got to meet their granddad, their great granddad, it helps them to see kind of what kind of person he is. So that's why, you know, I encourage her to do that. But I think sometimes we do shy away from it if it's with someone who also loved that person, because we don't want to make them sad. And maybe we don't know, and so you don't want to take the chance, especially kids. They're constantly looking to us for cues as to how they're supposed to act.
Because they don't know.
Yeah.
I
forget that sometimes.
Yeah, they don't know how they don't know how they're supposed to act when they're sad and grieving something. They don't know. They don't have those examples for the most part. And it's kind of like when they talk about how when if you go to a children's hospital, a kid will get sick and then just go right back to playing because they don't know how to act sick.
Yeah.
So they don't know. I mean, the kids don't know when it comes to dealing with grief. So, what's the name of the book? Because I know we're going to get emails.
So this book is called The Invisible String, and the author is Patrice Karst, and it's available on Amazon. It's very easy to find. I don't think it's very expensive. I've had this particular copy for 5 years now, probably, so I don't remember. But it's just mine's a paperback copy, which is easy to carry around and fit in your bookshelf.
Sure.
But I do think it's a great one to add, even if, like I said, even if your child hasn't necessarily experienced death in their family, they have been away from someone. They've missed someone. They've missed you when you went to work. I mean, that happens.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a good one if you've got a good bedtime or whatever your routine is for reading with your child. I'd say this is a great one to add to your library because it does help you to have that talk about it and have that out there so that when it does become an issue, you've already got a leg up and you're already in a better place maybe and feel a little better equipped to be able to have those hard conversations with your child.
Melanie Schuler is here with us. She's our Minister of Children and Families here at Clear Branch Methodist. Mel, what's coming up in the next couple of months for children's ministry? I know it's a busy season. You know, there's a holiday coming up at the end of December that's like 2.5 months away. Yeah. So I would imagine there'd be some things on the horizon.
We actually have quite a few things. Fall is a very busy time here for everybody, but also for here with us at Clear Branch and with the Children's Ministry. The first thing we have coming up is our Trunk or Treat on Wednesday, October 25th. And that's a community-wide event. We love for everyone to come. We have live music, we have hot dogs, we have cakewalks, we have hay rides, and my father is one of the hayride drivers. Not saying that one's better than the other, because all our hayride drivers are amazing. But Daddy is, I can't even do it, but they make fun of the way I say Daddy. But Barry Bottoms and Terry Golden and possibly Paul Gibbons, who hasn't committed yet, but I think is going to. All are wonderful.
No pressure, Paul.
No pressure. Are all wonderful hayride drivers. And then we have lots of different families in our church and also in our community that set up their cars and decorate and are dressed up in costumes for families to come through and trick or treat, but in one condensed place. And it's nice and well lit, and we have live music, and it's just fun, and it's a great time. So that's coming up there. If you want to pre-register, which just saves you time when you get there, you can do that now. That went live yesterday. So you can go to our children's ministry or the Clear Branch Facebook page, click on the event, and you can, or maybe just the children's ministry.
We'll
anyway,
get there.
sign up. And
by the time this goes live, it'll be on there.
Perfect. Then you can also mark your calendars for, I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm just going to say the last Wednesday in November is our backyard Christmas kickoff, where we start off in our backyard that Mark was telling you about earlier, and we do some Christmas crafts and have some fun, festive Christmas foods, and then we usually make a trip over to the worship center to see some very special guests. I'm not going to call them by name, but there's twinkly eyes and little glasses and a white beard involved.
What?
And the Mrs.
How do we keep getting on their calendar?
I don't know. We're just the luckiest people ever, as far as I can tell. And then the following week, the first Wednesday in December, I believe that was again, I'm going to say it wrong. It's the first Wednesday in December. You can look at the calendar. Is our Very Merry Family Movie Night. And this is an event for all ages. And obviously, we want our Clear Branch families to join us, but we want to see everybody. Again, we love for everybody in the community. We just have a 1,500-seat room that we can fill to watch a great Christmas movie together.
And we got popcorn for everybody.
And we have popcorn, and we're going to kick it off with a chili dog bar, which who could ask for more? And
this is the first time hearing about this, but I'm immediately twice as excited.
It's going to be amazing. So good. Cheese and chili and onions and crap, whatever the craziness you want to put on your hot dog, we're going to have. And then there will be a hot chocolate bar and cupcakes and popcorn for the movie. You can't ask for more.
Free.
And it's all free.
Where are you going to find that for like an entire family?
And you can come in your pajamas. I mean, the kids. Grown-ups wear real clothes. Let's not make it weird. But bring your kids in their pajamas. Give them a shower first. Throw them in the bathtub. Put them in their Christmas PJs and come on. Let us feed you dinner and lots of snacks. And then just as they're crashing from all the sugar, you can pour them in the back of the car and take them and drop them in the bed. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Melanie, thank you so much for being here this week.
I'm so glad to be. Thanks for having me.
Melanie Schuler, Minister of Children and Families here at Clear Branch Methodist Church. My name is Mark Harvard, and we will see you next week on the Clear Branch Methodist Podcast.